The broken treaty, the massive space station hung in the void like a jewel made of metal and light. Axiom Prime orbited a dead world that nobody wanted, making it the perfect neutral ground for the Galactic Council. Inside the station's grand chamber, representatives from 12 alien civilizations sat in a circle, looking down at the single human standing in the center. Director Sarah Chen stood straight, her dark blue uniform pressed and perfect. She had prepared for this moment for 3 years. Behind her, 2 human guards waited silently. Above them, the curved ceiling showed the stars beyond, a reminder that humanity was now part of something bigger than their small blue world. The chamber was enormous. Each council member sat on a floating platform that could move and rotate. The platforms were arranged by species importance, with the oldest races highest and closest to the center. The Archons held the top position. They were tall, thin beings with skin like polished silver, and eyes that glowed with a soft blue light. They had ruled the council for 15,000 years. Chen cleared her throat and began her presentation. She spoke about Earth's achievements over the past 50 years since achieving faster-than-light travel. She talked about the medical research humanity had shared, the biological databases they had opened to council scientists, and the trade agreements they had honored. Her voice was steady and professional. "We have fulfilled every requirement for full membership," Chen said. "We have proven our commitment to galactic peace and cooperation. Today we formally request full voting rights in this council." The Archon Prime, whose name was too complex for human tongues, leaned forward on his platform. His voice came through the translation devices cold and mechanical. "Humanity's request has been considered and denied." Chen blinked. That was not the answer they had expected. "May I ask why?" "We have met every—" "Your species is too young," another council member interrupted. This was a Vexnar, a being that looked like a walking collection of purple crystals. "You have existed in space for barely a moment. We measure our civilizations in millions of years." A third voice joined in, this one belonging to a Crethon representative. The Crethons were massive armored creatures that looked like a cross between an insect and a tank. "Besides, humanity has already served its purpose. Your medical research has been distributed to our pharmaceutical companies. Quite profitable, actually." Chen felt ice forming in her stomach. "Distributed? We shared that research with the Council for the benefit of all species. It was not meant to be sold." The Archon Prime made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your naivety is amusing, Director Chen. Did you truly believe we operated on charity? The Council exists to maintain order and profit. You provided valuable data. We compensated you by not destroying your world." "That was not our agreement," Chen said, her voice rising despite her best efforts to stay calm. "You promised protection and fair trade in exchange for our cooperation." "And you have protection," the Archon said, "as long as you remain useful and obedient. However, we have determined that Earth's resources would be better managed by more experienced species. The Crethon Dominion has purchased mining rights to your oceans and several outer system colonies." Chen's blood turned cold. "Those colonies are inhabited. There are humans living there." The Crethon representative clicked its mandibles together. "They will be relocated to work facilities. Their labor will help extract the resources more efficiently." "That's slavery," Chen said flatly. "You're talking about enslaving human beings." "We prefer the term resource optimization," the Vexnar said. "Your emotional attachment to individual lives is another sign of your species' immaturity." Chen looked around the chamber, searching for support from any of the other council members. Some looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up. They had seen this happen before, she realized. Other young species brought before the council, promised partnership, stripped of their resources, and cast aside. "I demand that this council honor its treaties with Earth," Chen said, her voice sharp and clear. "If you do not, there will be consequences." The Archon Prime's eyes brightened, which Chen had learned meant amusement. "Consequences? From humanity? You have 43 warships, Director Chen. The Council commands over 10,000. You will accept these terms or you will be eliminated. To demonstrate our sincerity?" The Archon gestured with one long finger. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a live feed from space. Chen recognized the location immediately. It was Proxima Centauri, humanity's first extrasolar colony. 250,000 people lived there, mostly families of scientists and terraformers. In the display, massive Crethon warships appeared out of faster-than-light travel. They formed a grid around the colony's main habitat stations. No, Chen whispered. Don't do this. This is simply a demonstration, the Archon said calmly. So that Earth understands the reality of galactic power. The Crethon ships opened fire. Chen watched in horror as white-hot beams of energy tore through the habitat stations. The structures exploded silently in the void, scattering debris and bodies into space. The feed showed escape pods launching desperately, but the Crethon ships targeted them too. In less than 3 minutes, Proxima Centauri colony ceased to exist. Chen stood frozen, unable to process what she had just witnessed. 250,000 people, gone. Murdered while the Galactic Council watched like it was entertainment. This feed is being transmitted to Earth as well, the Archon said. So your leaders understand their position. You have 1 week to accept our terms. Surrender your outer colonies to Crethon management. Open your planet's oceans to mining operations. Continue to provide research and data as requested. In return, Earth itself will not be harmed. Refuse and your homeworld will share Proxima Centauri's fate. Chen's hands were shaking. She clenched them into fists to make them stop. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but hard as steel. You have made a terrible mistake. No, Director Chen, the Archon said. You have made the mistake. You believed you were our equals. You believed treaties and laws protected the weak. You believed civilization meant something beyond power. These are childish fantasies. Now you will learn how the galaxy truly works. Chen looked up at the Archon Prime. She memorized every detail of his face. My species has a saying. When you strike at the king, you must kill him. You just struck at humanity. But you're letting us live. That will be your downfall. Remove her from the chamber, the Archon said, waving dismissively. Humanity has 1 week to respond. As Chen was escorted out by her guards, she activated her communication device. The signal would take time to reach Earth, but she needed to send it immediately. Her message was simple and direct. Priority Alpha. Director Chen to United Earth Command. Proxima Centauri has been destroyed. All colonists lost. The Galactic Council has declared its intention to enslave our outer colonies and strip mine Earth's resources. Treaties are void. We are at war. She paused, then added one more line. Recommendation to Command. Show them what happens when you threaten a species that was born in war, raised in conflict, and survived every attempt to wipe us out. Make them regret leaving Earth alive, the transmission sent. Chen walked through the corridors of Axiom Prime Station toward the human delegation ship, her mind already working through possibilities. The Council thought humanity would submit or die. They were about to learn that humans had a third option. They would fight, and they would win. The sleeping giant awakens Admiral Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of the warship Indomitable, watching Earth grow smaller through the viewport. Behind him, dozens of officers worked at their stations, coordinating the largest military mobilization in human history. The news from Proxima Centauri had reached Earth 6 hours ago. In that time, everything had changed. Stone was a career military officer, 58 years old with gray hair and a face carved from granite. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion 20 years ago and commanded Earth's defense fleet for the past decade. He had always known this day might come. Humanity had never trusted the Galactic Council, not really. That's why they had built ships in secret. Status report, Stone ordered. His executive officer, Commander Patricia Reeves, pulled up a holographic display. All hidden shipyards are now active, sir. Luna Base is launching vessels at full capacity. The Mars orbital yards have 23 cruisers ready for deployment. Jupiter Station reports 47 warships completed and another 100 in final assembly. Stone nodded. The Council had counted 43 human warships because that's what Earth had shown them. What they didn't know was that humanity had been building ships in secret for 30 years. Every asteroid mining facility, every gas harvesting station, every deep space research post had been designed with a secondary purpose. They were all shipyards. Total fleet strength? Stone asked. At this moment, 341 combat-ready vessels, Reeves replied. Within 2 weeks, we'll have over 600. Within a month, possibly 1,000. Around the bridge, officers exchanged glances. They had all known about the secret ships, but hearing the numbers still felt unreal. Earth had built an entire war fleet right under the Council's nose. Send a priority message to all colony governors, Stone said. Any settlement within the Council's known operating range needs to evacuate immediately. We're bringing everyone back to the Sol system where we can protect them. Sir, what about our response to the Council's ultimatum? Reeves asked. Stone's expression hardened. Send this message to Axiom Prime. Broadcast it on all Council frequencies. Message begins. The United Earth Government rejects all Council demands. We will not surrender our colonies. We will not submit to slavery. We will not bow to tyranny. The Council has declared war on humanity by destroying Proxima Centauri. We accept this war. Message ends. A communications officer looked up from his station. Sir, should we add anything about negotiations or diplomatic channels? No, Stone said flatly. They killed 250,000 civilians while our ambassador watched. There's nothing to negotiate. We're going to war and we're going to win. The bridge fell silent for a moment. Then Reeves spoke up. Orders for the fleet, Admiral? Stone pulled up a tactical map showing Council-controlled space. He pointed to a location deep in Council territory. Arcturus Station. It's the Crethon Dominion's main supply depot in this sector. The same Crethons who just murdered our people. We're going to hit them first, hit them hard, and show the galaxy that humanity doesn't make empty threats. That's 3 weeks' travel into hostile territory, Reeves pointed out. We'd be exposed, surrounded by Council forces. Exactly, Stone said with a grim smile. They think we'll defend Earth and wait for them to attack. Instead, we're taking the war to them. We move in 2 hours. Assemble Strike Force Alpha, all our fastest ships. We're going to teach the Crethons a lesson in human warfare. 2 hours later, 100 human warships jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading straight into the heart of Council space. The Council's sensors detected the fleet movement and confusion spread through their military commands. The humans were attacking. That made no sense. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded by enemies. But Admiral Stone understood something the Council had forgotten over their millions of years of peace. War wasn't about having the biggest guns or the most ships. War was about speed, surprise, and the willingness to do whatever it took to win. The Council had spent thousands of years playing politics and counting profits. Humanity had spent its entire history fighting for survival. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Arcturus system. Ahead of them, the massive Crethon supply station hung in orbit around a gas giant. The station was enormous, nearly the size of a small moon, with hundreds of cargo ships docked at its many ports. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Reeves reported. Enemy sensors have detected us. They're scrambling defensive forces. Stone watched as Crethon warships began launching from the station's bays. They moved slowly, ponderously. The Crethons built their ships to be tough and heavily armed, but they weren't fast or maneuverable. All ships execute attack pattern Delta, Stone commanded. Launch all fighters. Target their command nodes first, then weapon systems, then power generators. I want that station disabled in 30 minutes. The human fleet split into 3 groups approaching the station from different angles. Human fighters poured out of carrier ships like angry hornets, small and fast. The Crethon defenders tried to form defensive lines, but the human ships didn't fight like Council vessels. They didn't form neat formations or follow predictable attack patterns. Human captains used asteroids for cover, launched torpedoes from unexpected angles, and targeted weak points in Crethon ship designs that the aliens hadn't even realized existed. Every human ship had been designed by people who studied historical naval warfare, aerial combat, and asymmetric tactics. They fought like pirates and guerrillas, not like formal military fleets. The battle was chaos. Human destroyers darted in close to the station, using their smaller size to avoid the massive defensive guns. They targeted the station's sensor arrays, blinding it. Then came the heavy cruisers, launching volleys of missiles that overwhelmed point defense systems. Finally, boarding teams launched from assault ships. This was where humanity truly terrified the aliens. Human marines in powered armor breached the station's hull and fought their way inside. The Crethons were larger and stronger than humans, but they had never experienced close-quarters combat like this. Humans fought with a savagery that shocked them, using tactics that seemed insane. Marines used grenades in enclosed spaces, sacrificed themselves to hold positions, and showed absolutely no fear. One squad of Marines, led by Sergeant David Torres, pushed through to the station's command center. The Crethons inside tried to seal themselves in, but humans had brought cutting torches and explosives. They burned through blast doors like they were paper. Please, the Crethon commander clicked in translated speech. We surrender. We surrender. Torres looked at the alien through his helmet visor. You should have thought about surrender before you murdered Proxima Centauri. But we're not like you. We take prisoners. 3 hours after the battle began, Arcturus Station belonged to humanity. The surviving Crethons were secured in their own detention facilities. Human engineers were already stripping the station of useful technology and supplies. The cost had been 12 human ships destroyed and over 300 casualties. But they had crippled the Crethon supply network in this entire sector. Admiral Stone stood in the captured command center, looking at the holographic displays showing Council communication channels. Every major civilization was receiving news of the battle. He activated the broadcasting system. This is Admiral Marcus Stone of the United Earth Fleet. 3 hours ago, human forces captured Arcturus Station. This station was operated by the Crethon Dominion, the same species that murdered 250,000 human civilians at Proxima Centauri. We have taken this station as the first payment for that crime. Stone paused, letting his words sink in across thousands of light years. The Galactic Council believed humanity would submit to their threats. They believed we would accept slavery and resource exploitation because we are young and small. They were wrong. Humanity will fight. We will fight with every ship, every weapon, and every breath in our bodies. We will fight until the Council falls or until the last human dies. And we will never, ever surrender. He leaned closer to the camera. To every species watching this broadcast, if you stand with the Council, you are our enemy. If you stand aside, we will leave you in peace. If you stand with us against tyranny, we will welcome you as allies. Choose wisely. You have all seen what happens to those who underestimate humanity. The broadcast ended. Around Stone, his officers waited for orders. Set up a defensive perimeter around the station, Stone commanded. Send out scout ships to watch for Council response forces, and prepare the fleet for our next target. We're not stopping. We're going to hit them again and again until they understand that they started a war they cannot win. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in 10,000 years, they were afraid. The tide turns. The news of Arcturus Station's fall spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, beings who had never heard of humanity before suddenly knew the name. The young species from Earth had done the impossible. They had struck deep into Council territory and won, but the Council was not finished. The Archon Prime convened an emergency meeting and issued orders. The Vexnar Armada, the pride of one of the Council's oldest civilizations, would be dispatched to crush humanity once and for all. 300 warships under the command of Grand Admiral Zekthon would show these primitive mammals what real military power looked like. Zekthon was a Vex, Nar war hero who had commanded fleets for over 2,000 years. His crystalline form gleamed purple and gold, decorated with honor marks from a dozen campaigns. He had never lost a battle. He gathered his fleet at the rally point and prepared to jump to Earth's system. They are insects, Zekthon told his officers over the fleet communication network. They had one lucky victory against the slow-witted Crethons. Against a true military force, they will crumble. We will destroy their fleet, bombard their homeworld, and end this rebellion before it spreads. The Vexnar Armada jumped to faster-than-light travel, but they never reached Earth. Instead, they received a transmission from Admiral Stone, with coordinates for Barnard's star. The message was simple. If you want to fight humanity, come and get us. Zekthon laughed. The humans were making it easy for him. Rather than forcing him to hunt them down, they had gathered at a single location. He redirected his fleet to Barnard's star, confident in his overwhelming numerical advantage. The Vexnar fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in the Barnard star system. Sensor readings showed 40 human warships waiting for them near the system's asteroid belt. Zekthon formed his fleet into a traditional battle wall, with heavy ships at the center and lighter vessels on the flanks. All ships advance, Zekthon commanded. Maintain formation. Prepare to fire on my command. The human ships didn't charge forward to meet them. Instead, they retreated into the asteroid field. Zekthon frowned. Were they running? No matter. He ordered his fleet to pursue. That was his first mistake. The asteroid field was dense, filled with rocks ranging from pebble size to small moon size. The Vexnar ships had to break formation to navigate through it. Their sensors showed the human ships ahead, always staying just out of weapons range, leading them deeper into the field. Admiral, this feels like a trap, one of Zekthon's officers warned. Of course it's a trap, Zekthun replied. But what can 40 ships do against 300? Continue pursuit. The human ships split up, each going in a different direction through the asteroid field. Zekthun divided his fleet to follow them. That was his second mistake. Suddenly, the asteroids around the Vexnar fleet exploded. Not the asteroids themselves, but mines that had been hidden on their surfaces. Massive explosions tore through the Vexnar formations. Ships collided with asteroids or with each other in the chaos. Then the real ambush began. Human ships appeared from everywhere. They had been hiding in hollowed-out asteroids, their engines powered down, undetectable to sensors. Now they powered up and struck from point-blank range. Human captains didn't fight honorably or fairly. They rammed damaged Vexnar ships, causing them to crash into asteroids. They targeted bridges and engineering sections specifically. They used the asteroids as weapons, shooting at rocks to send them tumbling into enemy vessels. Zekthun tried to rally his fleet, but human stealth ships had deployed electronic warfare systems throughout the asteroid field. His communications were jammed. His sensors showed false readings. His carefully organized military armada had become a scattered collection of confused, frightened ships. All vessels, retreat to Rally Point Beta, Zekthun ordered. But only half his ships received the message. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Vexnar armada had lost 200 ships. Another 70 were damaged. Only 30 escaped intact. Zekthun's flagship, the Pride of Vexnar, was boarded by human marines. The Grand Admiral found himself surrendering to a human sergeant who looked barely old enough to shave. Admiral Stone arrived on the captured flagship and walked through its corridors to the bridge. Vexnar prisoners were everywhere, being guarded by human marines. Stone found Zekthun in his command chamber, his crystalline form dimmed with defeat. "You fought without honor," Zekthun said bitterly, hiding using traps, refusing proper combat. Stone sat down across from the alien admiral. "You know what the difference is between us? You've spent 2,000 years fighting ceremonial battles and putting down small rebellions. Humanity spent its entire history fighting itself. We had 2 world wars that killed hundreds of millions. We developed thousands of ways to kill each other. We learned every dirty trick, every brutal tactic, every desperate strategy." He leaned forward. "You think we're dishonorable because we don't line up our ships and trade shots like gentlemen? War isn't honorable. War is survival. And humans are very, very good at surviving." Stone stood up. "You'll be treated well as a prisoner. Unlike the Council, we don't torture or execute captives. But you're going to help us. You're going to tell us everything about Council fleet deployments, defense systems, and command structures. Because if you don't, more people are going to die. On both sides." Zekthun looked at the human admiral. For the first time in his long life, he felt truly afraid. These humans were not going to lose. They were too smart, too adaptable, too willing to do whatever it took to win. News of the Vexnar disaster reached the Council within hours. Panic spread through the chamber on Axiom Prime. The Archons called for emergency sessions. Council member species began arguing with each other, blaming each other for the situation. Then something unprecedented happened. 3 of the 12 Council member species withdrew from the Council entirely. The Chitterak hives, an insect-like species that had always been treated as second-class citizens by the older races, announced they would not fight humanity. The Pelagos Consortium, aquatic beings who had been forced to share technology without receiving fair compensation, declared neutrality. The Synthesis Collective, partly biological and partly cybernetic beings, stated that the Council's actions violated their ethical codes. 2 more species went further. The Sora clan's reptilian warriors, who had grown tired of the Council's corruption, sent a delegation to Earth offering military alliance. The Luminar Assembly, beings made of living crystal who generated and manipulated energy, did the same. Director Sarah Chen, who had returned to Earth after the Proxima Centauri massacre, met with the alien delegations. The meeting took place on a space station in neutral territory, with Admiral Stone present via holographic link. "Why are you doing this?" Chen asked the Sorok representative, a scaled warrior named Kraxtor. "Your people have been part of the Council for thousands of years." Kraxtor's eyes gleamed. "The Council has become weak and corrupt. They rule through fear and economic control, not through strength and justice. When you humans stood up to them, when you actually fought back, you reminded us what it means to be warriors. We respect strength and courage. You have both. The Luminar representative, a being of pure light contained in a crystalline matrix, spoke next. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. We have watched the Council grow more tyrannical for millennia. They hoard technology, suppress younger races, and exploit resources without regard for consequences. Your species may be young, but you fight for principles we once believed in. We would rather stand with you than continue supporting a corrupt system. Chen looked at Admiral Stone's holographic image. He nodded slightly. She turned back to the aliens. Welcome to the Alliance, Chen said. Together, we're going to tear down the Council and build something better. With new allies providing detailed information about Council operations, humanity's military campaign accelerated dramatically. Admiral Stone divided his growing fleet into multiple battle groups, each led by talented commanders who were given freedom to operate independently. Admiral Keiko Tanaka, a brilliant tactician from the Japanese Space Defense Force, took command of humanity's carrier groups. She led devastating attacks on Council supply lines, using fighters and bombers to cripple enemy infrastructure before capital ships ever engaged. General Dmitry Volkov, a veteran of ground wars on Mars, commanded the Marine forces. His troops liberated enslaved colonies across the Perseus Arm, freeing populations that had lived under tyranny for generations. The freed beings often joined the fight themselves, swelling the rebellion's ranks. Commander James Morrison, who earned the nickname Reaper for his stealth operations, led Special Forces missions deep into Council territory. His team sabotaged shipyards, assassinated corrupt officials, and spread propaganda that turned Council populations against their own governments. The war that the Council had expected to win in weeks dragged on for months, and they were losing. Every battle brought more species to humanity's side. Every Council defeat sparked rebellions on occupied worlds. The ancient empire was crumbling. Then the Council leadership made a desperate decision. They activated weapons that had been banned for thousands of years, planet-killer stellar disruptors. Weapons so terrible that all civilized species had agreed never to use them again. The march to Axiom Prime, the Grand Alliance assembled at the edge of Council space. 2,000 warships from 19 different species, united under a single purpose. The fleet stretched across millions of kilometers, the largest military force the galaxy had seen in recorded history. And at its head, flying the flag of United Earth, was Admiral Stone's flagship Indomitable. On the bridge, Stone studied the tactical displays showing their route to Axiom Prime. It would take 3 weeks of travel, fighting through multiple Council strongholds along the way. Every system they passed would be defended. Every planet would require liberation. It would be the longest and bloodiest campaign of the war. Fleet status? Stone asked. Commander Reeves pulled up the reports. All vessels ready for jump, Admiral. The Sarok war clans are eager to start. The Luminar ships have their energy weapons fully charged. Our human carriers are launching continuous fighter patrols. Everyone knows what's at stake, Stone nodded. In the months since New Harmony's destruction, the Alliance had grown stronger while the Council had fractured. Rebellions burned across Council space. Governments collapsed. Entire species switched sides or declared independence. But the Council's leadership, the ancient Archons, still controlled Axiom Prime and the core systems around it. They still commanded thousands of ships and controlled vast resources. This final push would determine the galaxy's future. Send the order, Stone said. All ships jump to light speed. Destination, Curvo system. We take it in 24 hours. The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving empty space behind them. The campaign to Axiom Prime became legendary. At Kervos, a heavily fortified mining system, General Volkov's Marines boarded and captured 3 orbital defense platforms in simultaneous assaults. The platforms' weapons were then turned against the Council fleet defending the planet, breaking their lines and allowing the Alliance fleet to sweep through. At the Nebulan Gate, a massive space station that controlled the only safe passage through a dangerous nebula, Commander Morrison's stealth teams infiltrated the station weeks before the fleet arrived. When the Alliance fleet approached, the station's weapons didn't fire. Instead, the gates opened wide and Morrison's teams had already disabled the garrison. The Alliance passed through without losing a single ship. At the twin worlds of Paraxia and Tellan, Admiral Tanaka's carrier groups engaged the largest Council fleet yet assembled, over 800 warships. The battle lasted 3 days and ended with the Council fleet shattered. But it cost the Alliance dearly. Tanaka's flagship was destroyed, though she survived by transferring her command to a cruiser. The Alliance lost 94 ships and over 10,000 personnel. Each victory brought more species to the Alliance cause. The people of Curvos, freed from Council exploitation, provided supplies and fuel. Refugees from destroyed Council fleets often surrendered and joined the rebellion. Young officers from Council species began defecting, bringing with them valuable intelligence. But the fighting also grew more desperate. Council forces, knowing they faced total defeat, fought with increasing brutality. They booby-trapped facilities before abandoning them. They took hostages. They used civilian populations as shields. The clean war humanity had tried to fight became dirty and savage. Stone walked through a field hospital on a liberated colony world, looking at the wounded from both sides. Human Marines lay next to Sorok warriors, next to injured Luminar beings, next to captured Council soldiers. Doctors of half a dozen species worked together to save lives. A young human medic, barely 20 years old, was treating a wounded Vexnar soldier. The alien had fought against humanity at Barnard Star and been captured. Now he had been injured during a prison facility bombing by Council extremists. "Why do you help me?" the Vexnar asked weakly. "Your people should hate mine." The medic, whose name tag read Chen, no relation to the director, didn't stop working. "Because you're wounded and I'm a doctor. It's that simple. We're not fighting you because we hate you. We're fighting because the Council system was wrong. When this war is over, we all have to live together. Might as well start now." Stone watched the exchange and felt something like hope. This war had cost so much. Millions dead, entire colonies destroyed, families torn apart. But maybe, just maybe, they were building something better from the ashes. Director Sarah Chen, who had been coordinating diplomatic efforts throughout the campaign, arrived at the field hospital to meet with Stone. They walked outside, looking up at the alien sky. "The Council is making a final stand at Axiom Prime," Chen reported. "Every remaining loyal species is gathering there. Our intelligence suggests they have at least 2,000 warships defending the station, plus automated defense systems that haven't been activated in 10,000 years. Can we win?" Stone asked. Chen was quiet for a moment. "Militarily, yes. You and your commanders have proven that humans can outfight anyone in the galaxy. But Marcus, we need to think about what comes after. If we destroy Axiom Prime completely, if we kill every Council member, what message does that send? How are we different from them?" Stone understood what she was asking. "You want to offer terms?" "I want to offer a choice," Chen corrected. "Surrender and face trial or fight and die. Some Council members are fanatics who will never surrender, but others might choose to live, and we need some of them alive to help rebuild. They have knowledge, experience, resources that will be valuable in creating a new galactic government." Stone looked at the younger woman with respect. She had watched 250,000 humans die while the Council laughed. She had every right to want revenge, but she was thinking about the future instead. "Send the offer," Stone said, "but make it clear, this is their only chance. When we reach Axiom Prime, anyone still fighting is an enemy." The message was sent across all Council communication channels. Most Council leaders rejected it with contempt. But some, especially younger members who had been forced into the war by their elders, began quietly reaching out to Alliance representatives. Secret negotiations started, with Council members offering information in exchange for protection. 2 weeks after beginning the campaign, the Alliance fleet arrived at the edge of the Axiom system. Ahead of them, the massive space station hung like a dark jewel against the stars. Sensor readings showed the Council's final fleet arrayed in defensive positions around it. 2,000 warships, minefields, energy barriers, automated weapons platforms, every defense the Council had spent millennia developing. Stone stood on the Indomitable's bridge, surrounded by his command crew. On the view screen, representatives from allied species watched from their own ships. General Volkov was ready with his assault teams. Admiral Tanaka, recovered from her injuries, commanded the carrier groups from a new flagship. Commander Morrison's stealth teams were already in position, having infiltrated the outer defenses weeks ago. "This is it," Stone said quietly. "Everything we fought for comes down to this battle. If we win, we free the galaxy from 10,000 years of tyranny. If we lose, everything we've sacrificed means nothing." He straightened his uniform and looked around at his crew, But we're not going to lose. Because we're human. Because we've got allies who believe in what we're fighting for. And because we've come too far to fail now. Stone raised his voice to a command tone. All ships advance. Execute Battle Plan Omega. For Earth. For the Alliance. For every being who ever suffered under the Council's rule. Let's finish this. The Alliance fleet surged forward. Behind them stretched a trail of liberated systems and freed populations. Ahead lay the final battle that would determine the galaxy's fate. In his private chamber on Axiom Prime, the Archon Prime received reports of the advancing fleet. He was ancient, had ruled for 15,000 years, had seen empires rise and fall. He had never imagined his rule would end like this, defeated by a species barely old enough to leave their homeworld. Activate all defenses, he ordered his commanders. No retreat, no surrender. If we fall today, we will take as many of them with us as possible. The Archon looked out at the stars through the viewport of his chamber. You may have strength, humans, he whispered. But we have been the center of galactic civilization for longer than your species has existed. We will not go quietly into the dark. The Battle of Axiom Prime was about to begin. It would be the largest and most brutal battle in galactic history, and before it ended, the galaxy would be changed forever. The Alliance fleet came within weapons range. The Council fleet opened fire. Space itself seemed to ignite as thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously. Shields flared, ships exploded. The final battle had begun. In the midst of the chaos, Admiral Stone gave his orders with calm precision. He had prepared for this moment his entire career. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humanity could do when pushed to the absolute limit. All ships engage at will, Stone commanded. Give them everything we've got. The war for the galaxy's future raged in the void. A new galaxy. The Battle of Axiom Prime raged for 6 days and nights, though in space there was no real difference between day and night. There was only the endless flash of weapons fire, the silent explosions of dying ships, and the desperate struggle for survival. Admiral Stone had planned every phase of the assault, but no plan survived first contact with the enemy. The Council's automated defenses proved more sophisticated than intelligence had suggested. Their weapons platforms could adapt to Alliance tactics in real time, learning from each engagement. The minefields were not just passive obstacles but contained smart mines that actively hunted ships. On the first day, the Alliance lost 200 ships breaking through the outer defensive ring. General Volkov's assault team suffered heavy casualties trying to board and disable automated platforms. One entire Marine battalion was lost when their transport was destroyed before reaching its target. But the Alliance kept pushing forward. Saurok war clans used their heavily armored ships to absorb punishment meant for more fragile human vessels. Luminar energy weapons found frequencies that could penetrate Council shields more effectively than conventional weapons. Human carriers launched wave after wave of fighters, overwhelming point defense systems through sheer numbers. Admiral Tanaka discovered that the Council's formation relied on a hub-and-spoke communication system. She targeted the command ships coordinating defensive sectors, causing temporary confusion in Council lines. Each time a command ship fell, Alliance forces pushed deeper into the defensive perimeter. Commander Morrison's stealth teams provided the breakthrough on the third day. They had spent weeks infiltrating Axiom Prime itself, hiding in maintenance tunnels and cargo holds. When the main battle reached critical intensity, Morrison's teams struck from inside the station. They sabotaged shield generators, disabled automated defense controls, and opened docking bays that allowed assault teams direct access. The station's internal security forces found themselves fighting a two-front war, the Alliance fleet battering from outside and human special forces causing chaos inside. It was exactly the kind of asymmetric warfare that humanity excelled at, and the Council had no doctrine for dealing with it. On the fifth day, a portion of the Council fleet mutinied. 300 ships from younger Council species turned their weapons on their former allies. The captains broadcast a simple message. We will not die for the Archon's pride. We surrender to the Alliance. This triggered a cascade of defections. More ships broke formation. Some fled the system entirely. Others actively joined the Alliance assault. The Council's defensive lines collapsed. By the sixth day, the battle had moved into Axiom Prime itself. Human Marines, Saurok warriors, and soldiers from a dozen allied species fought room by room through the massive station. Council defenders made their final stands in the central sections, fighting with the desperation of beings who knew their world was ending. Admiral Stone's flagship Indomitable docked with the station's command level. Stone led a boarding party personally, something his officers had argued against, but he had insisted on. This was his war. He would see it through to the end. They fought through corridors filled with smoke and debris. Council guards used ancient weapons that could disintegrate matter at the molecular level. Human Marines used tactics 15,000 years newer. Stone's security detail took casualties, but they pushed forward. Finally, they reached the council chambers. The same circular room where Director Chen had been dismissed and threatened so many months ago. Now it was a fortress, with the remaining Archons and their most loyal guards making a final stand. Stone's forces breached the doors with explosives. A firefight erupted in the chamber. Energy weapons and ballistic rounds filled the air. Stone took cover behind a fallen platform, coordinating his teams. "Cease fire," a voice called out. One of the Archons stepped forward, his silver skin dimmed with age and stress. "We surrender. Enough blood has been spilled." Stone signaled his forces to hold fire. He stood up slowly, weapon still ready, and approached the Archon. Behind the alien, he could see the bodies of council guards who had fought to the death. But several Archons and their attendants were still alive, their hands raised in surrender. "Where is the Archon Prime?" Stone asked. The ancient being pointed toward a private chamber. Stone and 2 Marines entered carefully. They found the Archon Prime standing before a viewport, looking out at the battle's wreckage. Hundreds of destroyed ships floated in the void, debris from both sides mixed together in death. "I underestimated you," the Archon Prime said without turning around. "We all did. We saw a young species and assumed weakness. We never considered that youth could mean strength, that hunger could mean determination." "You destroyed Proxima Centauri," Stone said flatly. "You enslaved populations. You killed 50 million people at New Harmony just to make a point, and you did it all while pretending to be civilized." The Archon Prime finally turned to face him. "We ruled this galaxy for 15,000 years. We brought peace, order, and prosperity to countless species. Yes, we became corrupt. Yes, we grew arrogant. But we built something magnificent." "You built something rotten," Stone replied, "and you held it together through fear and exploitation. That's over now. You're under arrest for war crimes and crimes against sapient species." The Archon Prime studied the human admiral. "What happens now? You execute us and become the new tyrants?" "No," a new voice said. Director Sarah Chen entered the chamber, accompanied by representatives from allied species. "You face trial. Every species you oppressed, every population you exploited, every civilization you held down, will have the chance to present evidence. You'll be judged not by your enemies but by the law." "And what law is that?" the Archon asked bitterly. "Council law, which we wrote." "Galactic law," Chen replied, "which we're going to write together. Every species as equals, including yours, if any of your people want to participate in building something better." The trial of the council members was broadcast across the galaxy. It took place in the same chamber where they had once ruled, but now it was filled with representatives from over 100 species. The Archons and their collaborators sat in the center, no longer on elevated platforms but on the same level as everyone else. The evidence presented was overwhelming. Recorded orders for genocides, economic data showing systematic exploitation, testimony from thousands of victims. The council members had committed atrocities across millennia, all carefully documented in their own records. Some of the Archons remained defiant to the end. The Archon Prime himself never showed remorse, insisting that his actions had been necessary for galactic stability. Others, particularly younger council members, expressed genuine regret and cooperated with investigators. The sentences were varied. The Archon Prime and 12 other senior council members were imprisoned for life on a secure facility. Their personal wealth, accumulated over thousands of years, was distributed to the species they had exploited. Dozens of lower-ranking officials received lesser sentences, primarily involving restitution and community service to rebuilding efforts. Some council species were granted amnesty in exchange for cooperation and participation in the new government. Others faced sanctions and reparations but were allowed to remain part of the galactic community. With the council destroyed, the galaxy faced a crucial question. What came next? Director Chen proposed the Concordat, a new galactic government based on principles humanity had learned through its own painful history: representative democracy, equal rights for all species regardless of age or power, checks and balances to prevent any single group from dominating, economic fairness, protections for the weak, freedom of speech and thought. Not every species supported it. Some older civilizations wanted to maintain their privileges. Some younger species wanted revenge against their former oppressors. But over the course of months, through patient negotiation and compromise, 117 species ratified the Concordat Charter. Axiom Prime was transformed. The Grand Council chambers became an assembly hall where representatives from all member species had equal votes. The station's luxurious private quarters for archons became public spaces, offices for diplomatic staff, and quarters for delegates. Earth became the Concordat's military backbone, not through conquest but by mutual agreement. Other species recognized that humanity's military expertise and willingness to fight for principles made them ideal protectors. Human military academies began training officers from allied species, teaching both tactics and ethics. Admiral Stone retired 6 months after the war ended. He had been fighting almost continuously for 18 months, and the cost had aged him beyond his years. At his retirement ceremony, representatives from 30 species came to honor him. "You saved the galaxy," the Sorok ambassador told him. Stone shook his head. "I just did what needed to be done. The real heroes are the ones who didn't make it home. The Marines who died boarding council ships. The pilots who sacrificed themselves to protect their wingmates. The civilians at Proxima Centauri and New Harmony, who never got a chance to fight back. Remember them, not me." He returned to Earth, to a small house in the Rocky Mountains. For the first time in 30 years, he had no orders to follow, no battles to plan.